The second topic I want to get to with you, Paul, and I want to be delicate with how I say this, and I put it out on social media last night. There was obviously great response to it because of who the team is. I don't think Notre Dame's loss to Northern Illinois was a fatal blow, but I think it was pretty damn close for them this year with the schedule that was incredibly favorable to go to the college football playoff. After beating A&M a week ago, they go and lose to Northern Illinois. First time Notre Dame in the history of its program has lost to a MAC team. That's going to get real chilly real quick in Notre Dame.
Yeah, no, I'm not as fatalistic about them as I am, let's say, Michigan, but again, totally different situation.
Yeah.
Because the path is different. But wasn't it Marshall last year or the year before they lost?
There's been a Marshall incident. There's been a 3-9 Stanford incident.
There's a lot of these and I think there were two things motivating Notre Dame fans last week. They went to College Station, which we all made it into something that it was not. It's a tough place to play, but not when the other side is struggling. And I think the LSU loss, the Brian Kelly former girlfriend obsession still exists. So there was a lot of ammunition for Irish fans. I think that they just their schedule is so tricky that they don't have the normal, hey, SEC, you can lose Big Ten. It depends on, I mean, if they lost another game, it really depends on who it is. But they haven't proven anything yet because A&M is just they're an 8-4 team. So that is not going to get you very far when that committee starts meeting.
Yeah. And look, Galloway and I argued about this on TV briefly and then off air, and even Mullen kind of got involved in it. I don't think Notre Dame, with this loss now on their resume, let's say they go 11-1. Okay. 10-2, they're done. You can't justify it. But 11-1 against a 10-2 SEC team with a loss on your resume to Northern Illinois, whatever. Northern Illinois goes on to win the MAC. I just don't know that you can get through, because I believe Notre Dame's still got a little asterisk next to them anyway, and that the committee would rather than be in a conference, because you got to evaluate them differently. But if I'm going off memory, Florida State's on their schedule, USC's on their schedule. USC appears to be a legitimate team. I just don't know that if you're Notre Dame, you can sit and justify this thing come end of November with what you did week one. It's just not a good look.
Especially if they're being compared to someone who's lost a conference game. That would just be a disqualification. So, I mean, they're in a really tricky spot. We overreact week one. Week two, we come back to reality, and they're in the back of the conversation now.
And by the way, I love Marcus Freeman, the energy he brings to Notre Dame. He's a really, really good recruiter. So look, he's going to understand, and I think he does, because he's been at Notre Dame long enough now. He's going to understand that these hiccups, they awake the echoes probably a little bit more than you want, because everyone in Notre Dame with the schedule last week was feeling sky high. You brought it up, and that was the next place I was going. That's the chemistry Paul and I have after a decade plus of doing this together. Michigan. I always feel like on this show and others that I have to preface comments that I'm about to make, and I'll preface it here. Michigan, you had a national championship run with Jim Harbaugh. You won 3 consecutive Big Ten championships and went to 3 consecutive college football playoffs, culminating in what you brought him in to do last year, which was win a national championship. I am saying all of that because you had the success that you craved for so long. But my biggest pet peeve, go back to last week's show, we'll put it forward here. My biggest pet peeve in football is when we look at rankings in the new year and we don't look at the program and where it stands as a whole. Anyone with eyes could have told you offensive linemen, 3 or so, went off to the NFL. Blake Corum went off to the NFL. J.J. McCarthy went off to the NFL. Jim Harbaugh and the staff went off to the NFL. Sanctions stayed. Players that probably the quarterback, not enough guys stayed. Try to convince people that Michigan is a top 10 team is just absolutely insane. And Texas went in there yesterday. I was like, you know what? I know the ranking that's attached to them. That's not a top 10 team. They're not even a top 25 team at this point, and it's gonna get rough for Michigan until they stabilize all of the departures and everything going on around them.
We'll catch you later, Michigan. We'll see you next year. I mean, they can salvage the season, but they're not going to be in the conversation, other than with more NCAA news. That's the only way Michigan becomes top of mind, and it's just not only demoralizing, but you just giving fuel to all your enemies. I happen to be in a lounge yesterday in an airport watching the game with a couple of Ohio State fans, and I don't need to complete the sentence. I mean, they were. I mean, it was 3:30 in the afternoon, and they were sipping down doubles.
Which, by the way, and that's why I did the preface, because Paul, I think that's okay. It's not going to be okay for Michigan people, but you got your national championship.
You did well. You had a good run.
If Jim Harbaugh's still there, you're probably finding your way to sustain your spot among the nation's elite. But when you really dive into this and you look at all of the departures, that's just tough to do. Much less a coach that's never been a head coach before. I think there were too many unfair expectations placed on Michigan because we looked at them as national champions. We slapped the ranking on them and we said, hey, they're going to be the same team. They're making the playoff. In no way was that going to happen. None.
How